real estate is actually a very important investment decision that somebody doesn't need to take it lightly when it comes to making that decision. It's a decision you need to put your best foot forward. You need to ask the right questions. You need to ask the right people the right question, because asking the right question is different from asking the right people the right question. In my last video, I said that no matter how genuine the answer to a question is, it depends on who is answering it. So in real estate investment, if you ask the wrong person the right question, they will give you a wrong answer, even if they know the right answer. Because most of the time, why they become the wrong person, because they have an altering interest in that transaction. So for example, there is this heinous property in a community or something, and you want to buy it, and you go to meet somebody unknown to you, ignorant to you, you don't know that that person has a personal interest in that sale. Because of the way transactions happen down here, there's a loop of agents leading to a transaction. So a particular transaction might have up to 5 agents facilitating that transaction. So, or even 3 families facilitating that transaction. And inside that 3 families, they have like 4 people, 5 people. So they are littered in the community, and you say you want to go and do your own personal due diligence. You go and meet them and ask the person, please, is this the right owner of this land? And they are already connived behind closed doors that yes, they want to sell it in dubious circumstances. They're going to tell you yes. You understand? They're going to tell you yes and take your money and swindle you. So it's about who is answering the question and the answer to the question itself. So it's an investment. You must be very wary, very particular about due diligence. You understand about the different factors and elements that are necessary for that transaction to be free and to be smooth. So in this video, we'll be looking at the 3 major loopholes, or 3 major factors that introduces scams in real estate transactions in Nigeria. And of course, I want you to be very much attentive. So we're going to help someone. So number 1 is capacity to sell, capacity to own, right? Sell and transfer title, interest, and ownership. So it's actually a long one, but the truth is this, really, this is actually how a solid real estate transactions looks like. So the person that is selling or you're buying from must have the capacity to own that land. And why that factor is very important is, for example, in some scenarios, in some properties that are customarily owned, or like community owned or family owned, that's customary ownership. Customary ownership simply means the land that was transferred from generation to generation. For example, the land you are living in currently in your family, in your village, there's no title document anywhere, except probably your father bought it when he is grown up from somebody else. But for many of us who grew up in family compound, did you grow up in family compound? Okay, in your village, you didn't grow up in family compound. Who gave him the land? He bought it? Is there any title to it? Okay, so it's called regularization. So he regularized the land at some point. So for many of us in my village, I can tell you all the land, all the people in my village are living in currently was transferred to them from the great-grandfather up to now. And it's family compound. When you come inside family compound, there's no fence. Everybody's house is there. Then there is a central obu. You understand, where the elderly ones are always sitting and having meeting. Those kind of compound, it's a customary land ownership. You know, in that position, if one person comes from back, probably no matter who the person is, it could be a figurehead, it could be a man, it could be anybody comes from back and say, hey, there's this land we want to sell in my family. And now takes you and go and sell a property to you. The question you should be asking is, does this person alone have the capacity to own that land by himself? And if he has the capacity to own, does he have the capacity to also sell? So he has the capacity to own because he's part of the owners. Mind you, he is by default as a son of that family. He has that capacity to own the property, but does he have the capacity to sell? That's where the question comes, which is no. So if you don't understand, he doesn't have the capacity to say, you might fall into that land scam. And does he also have the capacity to transfer? So where this transfer comes in is, for example, a father, right, has a son, and the son is, let's say, 10 years old, and he gives the boy a plot of land somewhere. You understand? Probably he died, and part of the things, and probably, for example, in Query land here, a man can marry like 3 or 4 wives. You understand? The last wife has a son of 10 years, and the man died, and one of the things that came to this son is some plots of land in his name. So now he has the capacity to own, he has the capacity to sell, but he doesn't have the capacity to transfer because he's a minor. You understand? So these are some of the nitty-gritty surrounding, So if you don't understand this sentence, somebody having the capacity to sell, to own first, to sell and to transfer title, interest and ownership, then there is a high tendency you're going to fall into a land scam. And for many people, most of the time, why they fall into this scam is, number one, ignorance, right? Ignorance. And number two, the people intentionally want to scam. You understand? The people intentionally, so you know these things, but this person is out to scam you. So there's a way these people can package these things, called packaging, and still sell it to you. And you still feel like they have the right to own, to sell, and to transfer. So this is where, liaising with a legal practitioner becomes very necessary. Or hiring the services of people like ourselves who are experienced in it, who can be able to look at a document and spot where the irregularities are and point it to you, right? So this is one of the ways by which, land scams, start here in Nigeria. All right, so number two, don't worry. Number two is jurisdictional differences here. Jurisdictional. So we are looking at the several ways by which land scams can start in Nigeria. Jurisdictional differences. So by jurisdictional differences, we're looking at the different land laws that are evident or that are present in different jurisdictions of the world. So by default, we have the global jurisdiction. That is the global way of doing real estate, right? Global jurisdiction, right? Which entails when two countries are having land disputes. So you hear when two countries are fighting boundaries. For example, Russia and Ukraine are currently having boundary issues, right? They are fighting for land. So that's a global, land issue. It's a global real estate problem. So at that point, it involves two governments, two sovereign nations fighting. Number two is local jurisdiction, right? So Nigeria is a local jurisdiction because it has a uniform Land Use Act of 1978 that governs every land in Nigeria. It's a uniform land law, right? So it is also not the same for some countries that doesn't run the federalism like we do. Some countries doesn't run it. So that way, states are empowered to have their own different land laws. We're not going to go into that, but I'm just trying to let you understand what a local jurisdiction looks like. The country is a local jurisdiction, yes. Good. So now, in Nigeria, we also have, you understand, different jurisdictions. But I call it sublocal jurisdiction. This is where states and local governments comes in, right? Because, for example, the CFO in Lagos and CFO in Port Harcourt can never be the same. You understand? The structure and the English and the terms and conditions and the whole thing that you have to look out for will be totally different. The same thing with Abuja. In fact, Abuja is it's a different game entirely. You get? So this is what it is meant by jurisdictional differences. And if you don't understand these things, there is a high tendency that you're going to be scammed. You understand? There's the high tendency that somebody is going to present a title document that actually doesn't align with the local jurisdictional requirements of a particular locality and you buy into it. You understand? So you must consciously look at what is the nature of a title document in a location. What are the terms and conditions that guarantee a valid real estate transaction in a locality? You need to know those factors. You understand? For example, customary title document is different. Customary title is different from statutory, is different from legal. You understand? So, for example, customary, statutory, legal. So, customary land titles are, for example, community lands that doesn't have any trace of any title document anywhere. You understand? It's one generation that died and another generation inherited a property. You understand? Inheritance, most of the inheritance properties doesn't have any documents in it. Most of the land people inherit. Yeah.
Can't people actually try and apply?
Regularization. So now that is where knowledge comes into play. Most of the people who are still in those villages, who are the figureheads, don't have that knowledge. You understand? You understand what I'm talking? As a developer, most of the properties we buy, community property we buy here, we are the first people that actually get the first deed on those lands. You understand? Most of the time we just do due diligence based on community level. So we go to the village chiefs, we ask them questions, we confirm it, then we go and chat it at the Ministry of Land to confirm that government doesn't have a particular interest in that location, which is also part of this government interest is also part of the ways land scams come into Nigerian real estate transactions. But I'm not going to talk about it here. Subsequently, maybe in my paid courses, I'll talk about that. So you go and charge it to confirm if that land is free. You understand? So those are the way we conduct due diligence at that level. Most of there's no document to cite. It's just goodwill of the community and taking your faith to work and moving on with that transaction. So you need to understand the difference between customary, statutory, and legal. So customary, like I said, is inheritance and community properties. Statutory is deed of assignment and deed of conveyance. These are statutory. Deed of conveyance that are not registered already. They are not registered. So many people have deed of conveyances and deed of assignment that are not registered.
What's the meaning of deed?
So deed of conveyance, just like the word conveyance is. Conveyance means to convey. And deed is an agreement. It's a legal word for agreement. So agreement to convey this property from me to you, because I have the right to own, to sell and to transfer. So that document is called deed of agreement or assignment. So you are assigning this land or this property to this person on your own behalf with the power vested on you as the owner, right? So that's the meaning of deed of conveyance. So the difference between statutory and legal. So example of legal documents are C of O's, arrow of O's, and probably gazette. So this is going to form part of my legal course for real estate. It's one of the courses I'm going to be launching sometime during the year. So it's going to form majorly part of my legal course. It's going to be very robust. It's going to be complete. We're going to talk extensively on the different kinds of land titles and what they mean. So gazette, arrow of one, C of O, certificate of occupancy, right of occupancy, gazette. These are legal land documents, title documents. Whereas deed of conveyance and assignment that are not registered are statutory. Statutory simply means they can also be referenced at the court of law if they are presented. You understand? So what I'm showing you are the kind of documents that are actually valid on the court of law. You understand that when you take it to the court of law, probably to go fight for a particular plot of land or property that is under contention, you can present these things and the judge can actually look at them and make declarations based off them. You understand? So the difference between legal and statutory is that these ones are not registered, government doesn't know about them, but they are actually valid. Then legal is that these are registered at the government level. So for example, the CFO is directly from the governor's office. The Gazette is from the governor's office. The ROFO in Abuja, in this case, ROFO is only obtainable in Abuja, is from the Minister of FCT's office. So these are legal land titles. You understand? So if you don't understand these jurisdictional differences concern land titling, there is a high tendency that you are going to fall into land scams here in Nigeria. You understand? Out of ignorance. You understand? Then there is other ones that people are actually, touting to also be legal land, but they're not. For example, power of attorney. Power of attorney is not a legal land title, but there are exceptions. There are exceptions to power of attorney. You understand? There are exceptions in the law, in the court of law, where the judge might ask for it, but it is not a legal land title. So power of attorney actually, I know you want to ask, power of attorney is simply giving some other persons the power to conduct real estate transactions on your behalf. For example, you might own a parcel of land somewhere in Port Harcourt and you have a lawyer you trust. You could write a power of attorney signed by you, giving this lawyer the authority to help you sell this property or use this property for so and so use. For the specified period of time, it could be as long as possible, but it has to be duly signed by you, right? Good. So this is another way by which land scams start in Nigeria. Then number 3, any questions? Yes.
So this you said it's not registered. You get a land now. Sorry, if you're having a land dispute now, you carry your deed of conveyance.
Okay, so still under legal, there is registered deed of conveyance is registered. Deed of conveyance registered, yes. Go ahead.
So this will probably answer the question because there are some that are registered.
Yes. Yes.
So why do people now acquire the one that is not registered?
So many people doesn't. For example, the original owners of these properties, they're not really perturbed about these whole things. So most of the time, in order to just use it for purpose of, exercising ownership at local level, they could go as far as, paying they call it a charge and bail lawyer, charge and bail, those kind of lawyers there, to just knock up something that looks like deed of conveyance and just for their own usage. So just keep it there, hoping that one day the need will arise. There might be a court case. They'll just go there and present it at the customary court and win a case. You understand? Because at that point, it's the first person to have a deed that wins on that property. And probably not just that. It's not just that the first person to have a deed. The first person to have a deed that have a root title. So root title is actually called recital. Recital is what points the ownership of the property to its beginning, to the root. So when you see a deed, there's a part of it that is called the recital. The recital simply means where the history of that land was stipulated. From when was that land, when did the ownership of that land start? Who was the first person to own it? And how did the person now transfer it to a guest to you? You understand?
Yes. Well, this has to not be tracing.
Yes.
First
Person. Yeah. So you might even be the first person to have a deed on that property. But if it doesn't have a tacit and very clear recital, then you don't have any case on the table. So I might even get my deed today, signed today, and it has a proper recital, and it is provable. We can prove that recital. Then I'm winning that case. So the root of the title also plays a big role in determining if a title is valid or not, whether legal or statutory or customary. You understand? So you must always know this about jurisdictional differences. It differs. Certificate of occupancy is ROFO is right of occupancy, and ROFO is only obtainable in FCT Abuja. It doesn't happen anywhere in Nigeria. Yes. You understand? So jurisdictional difference, and another thing you need to note about jurisdictional differences is the fact that every state have also their peculiarities, like I already mentioned, right? You can only hear gazettes, you can only hear governor's consent in Lagos. You can't hear it in Abuja, you can't hear it in Port Harcourt. Like I said, I'll talk wholesomely about them in my legal course, right? My real estate law course, and somewhere within the year. So these are the jurisdictional differences that has to do with real estate. The number 3, but not the least, is lease. Lease is another way by which scams enter into Nigerian real estate transactions. So lease is actually, let me borrow one of my guys' English. It's actually a senior brother to rent. But the only difference is that rent is 0 to 3 years. Anything within this range is seen legally as rent. Then from 3 years and above is lease. So that's the only difference between rent and lease. So now, where does the scam factor come into through lease? No, the way is this. Most developers or most people that claim to own these properties, in most cases, they are not the real owners of them. They leased that property most times for 20, 30, 40 years. So when they lease it, because of their own evil mindset and probably bad plans, instead of them to properly, for example, somebody can come and lease 100 plots of land from a person or from a community. It was signed as deed of lease. What they was given to that person was deed of lease. You understand? Instead of that person to now probably sublease that property to other people. For example, you have 100 plots on your hands and people are coming to buy the plots from you. You should not sell to them for ownership. You should sublease to them for a period of time, and it should fall within that 50 years window.
Someone leases a property
for 100 years, let's say for 50 years, yes, 100 plus for 50 years, and you want to use it to do business, you want to use it to generate money within that 50 years. So you are not permitted to sell it with a deed of conveyance. What you need to sell that property with is called deed of sublease. So what most developers do, which is actually happening currently in some parts of the country, is that they get this kind of offer from a community, from a family, and they begin to sell that property as their own. So if you're not well educated about this, you will go and buy a property that is under lease, and at the end of the 50 years tenure, you become a tenant to the owners of the property, thinking that you have bought the property. You know, there's a principle of reversal of ownership. So it comes back to the principal owners after 50 years. And by default, you're already a tenant in your own house. So you now start paying, you either buy the property again, the land again from the owners, or you start paying them every year. So these are some of the ways by which, there are other ways by which, scams enter into the Nigerian real estate industry. But these are the 3 foundational ways by which, if you understand these ways, these 3 core, ways, avenues by which, these 3 avenues really, you have been able to block a lot of loopholes and reduce your capacity to fall into scams when it comes to buying lands and properties in Nigeria. I hope I've been able to help someone. So if you're watching online, if you got value, please comment what you got in the comment section, and of course subscribe to the YouTube channel, because here we talk everything about real estate investment the right way. And of course, share this video to as many people as possible. See you on the next one.